it's Doris with Aldi Books, and I don't even know how long it's been since I did a wrap up on any books I've read. I think it's been since mid-February, perhaps, because I did not read any books in March. And I had a few lingering books that I read prior to March, so February, yeah. So, my memory is not so great, so I apologize in advance for these books that I read in February because I don't remember that much. But anyway, just, to keep tabs on things, I'm just going to go through them now. I'm kind of surprised. I think it's really interesting how many memoirs that I have read this spring. Like most of these are memoirs. So, and I didn't realize it at the time because they're not like real marketed as memoirs, all of them. Or I didn't think so. But anyway, let's just dive in. So, Aussie April, which wasn't that long ago. All three of the books I managed to read for Aussie April were actually memoirs. So, The Erratics by Vicki Laveau Harvey. I just thoroughly enjoyed this, just a lot. Jacqueline from 6 Minutes for Me sent me this one and said I would love it, and I did. She totally knows me. This one I actually thought was a novel until I read up on it a little bit. This is set in Canada. Two sisters, and the mom and dad, the mother had issues. And those passed down to the girls, and they were separated, like, what's the word for that? Emotionally as adults. The mom kind of disowned them just because she was a little bit, and so they lost the connection with their father too, and just how the two sisters processed that and how they got along. There's a dark, edgy sadness to the humor that I really liked, but this was fabulous in my opinion. And then Fire Country, How Indigenous Fire Management Could Help Save Australia by Victor Stephenson. This was, I thought this was nonfiction about the Indigenous Australian working of fire to manage the landscape and how important that is in our times with all of the wildfires in Australia and, land management issues. And it is that, but this is actually a memoir as well of Victor Stephenson, how he reconnected with his Indigenous heritage and became really close to and was mentored by a couple of gentlemen in the community there that he discovered, and how he learned fire management through them. There he is, and his desire to share that with young people in his community, and really enjoyed this. I will say that this one feels repetitious in places, especially with the nature writing fire management parts. So, you may want to skip some of it if that's the case. Skip around. And then Tim Winton's Island Home, a landscape memoir. I think this one I really did know was a memoir. And this one is just gorgeous. This is my first Tim Winton, and it won't be my last. I do want to explore his fiction, and I believe he has more nonfiction as well. But his writing is just stunning in this, and it just made me proud to be Australian, and I'm not even Australian. I just really resonated. The book resonated with me, I should say, his connection to wild spaces and just the large scale and wildness of them, especially, growing up in Florida. Yeah, this is, if you are Australian and you love your homeland, and why would you not? This is a must read, in my opinion. But I would highly suggest it to, if you like outdoor landscapes and, that feeling, that largeness, I would highly recommend that. So we read this for the Book Naturalist book club pick for April. And I have a couple more Book Naturalist book club picks here. So I read The Home Place, Memoirs of a Colored Man's Love Affair with Nature by J. Drew Lanham. This one was our February pick, and this is set in the South. I forget, is it South Carolina or North Carolina? I think it's South Carolina. But I, being a Southerner myself, really connected with the landscape and the flora and fauna and things he was talking about, and also the Southern culture, rural life. And I also really respected his discussions of being a Black man out in nature and how that is so different. And, problems that can come up for him, and, just marching that way to the beat, so to speak. But yeah, I learned a lot from this and also connected with it at the same time. So another great pick. And then Ecology of a Cracker Childhood by Janice Ray. This is also set in the southern U.S. This one is in southern Georgia, which is really close to where I grew up in North Florida. So the landscape in this one was something that I completely understood. We actually picked this one. Heidi let me pick this one. Heidi from My Reading Life co-hosts with me on Book Naturalist, but for my birthday month, so March, my birthday month. And Janice Ray grew up kind of in a junkyard in the South. And her dad struggled with some mental health issues, and you get, rural religion, culture, cultish mixed in there. So really a fascinating, eclectic mix, and also the gorgeous nature writing. So yeah, we're having a really great time with the Book Naturalist picks. They've been real winners thus far. And then one more true memoir, and this one also I did not realize, I thought it was a novel, Brother, I'm Dying by Edwidge Dandacat. This one is Caribbean, and for some reason I can never remember what country, no matter how many times people tell me. Haiti, but it's partially set in the States as the family moves over. So the parents leave ahead of the daughter, and the daughter is raised by her uncle. And so just transitioning between the two places and the two families. And again, this was really, really beautiful. Her writing was just so touching. And, the sadness with the immigrant treatment in this book really, really was devastating to me. But yes, another great memoir. So that is 6 memoirs, true memoirs. And then this one, A Ghost in the Throat by Sean, can pronounce this beautifully, Sean the Book Maniac. I was supposed to have read this. Buddy read this with him, and I started out strong the first check-in, but then I fell off their wagon and did not read in March much at all. So this one was for the Irish readathon in March. And I think that, Sean did a tag about reading moods, being a mood reader kind of thing. I forget the name of it. And it was just ironic because I don't consider myself a mood reader at all. Like, I'm a knowledge-based reader. I set TBRs, and I don't care if I make my TBRs, but I follow them because I'm not moody about my reading. I'm academic about it, sort of. So it was really funny because I was not in the mood for this. I think that's the problem. Spring had arrived and I was like flying up here, and this book struck me as very navel gazing, and I just wasn't here for it at the time I was reading it. The writing is gorgeous. So on a sentence level and thematically, it was really, really beautiful, and I should have loved it, but it just wasn't the time for me. And I'm kind of including this as in the memoir category because I think this was autobiographical a lot. Like, she pulled from her life a lot to write this novel. And it's kind of a dual biography, or so to speak, because half of the book she spends analyzing the life and poem of this earlier Irish writer. Definitely check out Sean's review because this is a beautiful book. It just wasn't the right time for me. And then this one is also quite a bit of memoir, a graphic novel adaptation of Naturalist by Edward O. Wilson. I had never read any Edward O. Wilson, but I'm definitely going to read more. This was just fabulous getting into his thoughts. So he was an entomologist from a very young age, like his tween years actually, and just, an Eagle Scout and Harvard, and way smart and way driven, but very humble about it at the same time. Like, not humble, but also humble, like earthy, I guess, maybe. So very interesting thoughts and nature perspectives and knowledge base. I want to read more of Edward O. Wilson. And then this one is really old. She is, back in the day, 1700s, I believe. 1660. And this, really enjoyed. This is kind of a picture book, but very mature. And she is a early naturalist and painter, very proto-feminist. I think a lot of you would enjoy this. And she actually, I think she was German or Dutch. But she ended up going to South America, like way ahead of her time, to study bugs and flowers. And she was one of the first to document metamorphosis in insects. And highly recommend if you are interested in any of those topics. And then I barely have been reading any fiction. I read Surviving Autocracy by Masha Gessen, and I read her other book about the fall of the Soviet Union and, Russia in modern times, and it was brilliant. They are so brilliant. I mean, to tell you, extremely. This book was brilliant, but it did not, I don't think I was ready for this yet, because it's basically a look at the Trump presidency and how it was very autocratic. And number one, I knew a lot of this stuff because I had followed the last 5 years so closely. And number two, because I had followed the last 5 years so closely and was so traumatized by it, this was like, oh, I just didn't want to relive it yet. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, it's a very smart book. They are very smart. Like, not even smart, intelligent, like, but I just wasn't ready to rehash that, if you know what I mean. And then finally, The Blacker the Berry by Wallace Thurman. I read this in February for Black History Month. This is a Harlem Renaissance novel. And this is one that I don't remember as much of reading it. I think part of that is because the main character just had very negative views on life because of her situation. Like, I totally got it. She's dealing with prejudice within her own community and outside of it because of the darker color of her skin. But yeah, she just keeps making poor choices. And yeah, unfortunately, I read this in February and it's not stuck with me. So I apologize for that. But clean slates. So yay, I have now wrapped up the few books that I've read recently, except for the one that I have read so far in May. Hopefully I'll be, more on top of things in May. I need to get back into the Friday reads, right? Soon, maybe. We'll see. Okay. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon. Bye.